The sun had only just lifted its face above the horizon, and the Benguela current was still draped in the soft light of early morning. The surface shimmered like beaten metal, a rolling sheet of silver blue stretching endlessly in every direction. Here, in one of the most nutrient-rich waters on Earth, life was awake long before the light arrived. Plumes of krill drifted like reddish clouds in the green depths. Shoals of anchovy darted in nervous formations. Above it all, two immense figures moved with a grace that seemed almost slow motion, a humpback whale mother and her calf. The mother's breaths came deep and steady, a low thunder rising with each exhale, a crisp hiss with each inhale. She surfaced, expelled a spout of vapor that caught the gold of the morning sun, then slipped back beneath the surface as smoothly as a hand into water. Beside her, the calf, barely half her length, imitated every movement, though with the slight clumsiness of youth. He swam close enough to feel the shadow of her pectoral fin sweep over him with each stroke, a silent reassurance that he was safe in the slipstream of her massive body. They were migrating south, away from the warm breeding grounds toward the colder, richer waters that would fatten them for the long journey back. The mother swam with deliberate economy, conserving her strength, teaching her calf the discipline of distance swimming. Every turn of her fluke was measured, every adjustment of her pectoral fins calculated for maximum glide. To the untrained eye, it was peaceful, but in her mind, there was no such thing as relaxation in the open ocean. The sea was as much predator as it was home. At first, it came as a feeling, a low, almost inaudible hum threaded through the deep. The mother stiffened slightly. The calf noticed the change in her posture and tilted his head, as if listening to tilt. It was the kind of sound that did not belong here, a deep, mechanical pulse, slow but relentless. She recognized it instantly. Ships. They had been hearing distant ship noise for days, but this one was close, its rhythm heavier, the pressure in the water more immediate. She shifted her depth, dropping slightly, keeping her calf tucked on her right side. The hum grew louder, more defined. Through the water, she could sense its size, its speed, the vibrations radiating from the enormous hull cutting through the current. She had crossed shipping lanes before, and she knew the dangers well. Ships were blind to the lives below. Their propellers did not slow for whales. Often, whales did not survive the meeting. The water brightened suddenly. Sunlight splintered through the shadow of something immense above them. The calf, curious, angled upward toward the light. She swung her pectoral fin out sharply, blocking him. The looming shape expanded until it filled half the ocean above. A cargo ship, its bulbous bow plowing forward with unstoppable momentum. She had seconds to decide. Dive deeper, and the hull might pass above. Sprint forward, and she might clear its path. Either way, the calf's slower speed would make the maneuver dangerous. She turned hard to port, aiming to slip under the massive bow. The sound hit first, a deafening wall of noise that rattled her bones. Then came the impact, not the slicing churn of propeller blades. She was lucky there, but the brutal shove of steel and speed. The ship's bulbous bow struck her left flank just behind the pectoral fin, scraping across her skin with barnacle-crusted ridges. Pain detonated in a jagged line along her body. She felt the blubber tear, the muscles strain. The sea exploded into white turbulence. She thrashed, a reflex older than memory. Her fluke smashed down, kicking her sideways out of the ship's path. The calf spun and roiled, disoriented, before darting back to her side. Above, the massive hull passed on, indifferent, leaving only a wake of shattered water and fading thunder. The mother's first breath at the surface came ragged, her spout breaking unevenly in the morning air. She forced another inhale, steadier this time. The calf surfaced beside her, exhaling in a small, clear fountain, oblivious to the full weight of what had happened. Below them, the water told a different story. A ribbon of blood uncoiled from her wound, curling upward in the current. It spread in slow spirals, catching the sun before dissolving into the green-blue depths. In the vastness of the ocean, it might have seemed a small thing, just a smear of red in endless water. But to the predators who ruled these waters, it was a signal that could travel for miles. The pain came in waves now, alternating between a burning throb and a cold ache as seawater washed over the torn flesh. She could still move. The injury had not crippled her, but she knew it was deep enough to matter. Her instincts, honed by generations of survivors, began to catalogue her options. Stay in open water, and any predator could follow the scent trail unchallenged. move to shallower, more turbulent areas, and she might make pursuit harder. But shallow waters carried their own dangers. The calf nuzzled her side, brushing the edge of the wound. She flinched despite herself, her muscles twitching involuntarily. He pulled back, confused, his dark eye wide. She closed the space between them, her body curving protectively around his smaller frame. There was no way to explain to him that the rules of the morning had changed, that play and curiosity were luxuries they could no longer afford. She turned south-southwest, setting a pace the calf could maintain, but that would still put distance between them and the shipping lane. The current here was cold, upwelling from the depths, rich with life. It offered some cover. The chemical chaos of plankton blooms and fish schools might briefly confuse a predator's senses, but she knew better than to hope for much. The scent of blood was older than fear itself. Far behind, deep in the green shadow, something shifted. A shape, slow, deliberate, the kind of movement that meant intent. The mother did not look back. She had learned long ago that predators were drawn to hesitation. Instead, she poured herself into the water, her muscles burning against the wound, her mind fixed on one truth. The only way forward was through. Somewhere beyond the horizon lay safer waters, but between here and there was a gauntlet she could not yet see. And somewhere behind them, in that endless blue, the hunt had already begun. The scent did not drift into the shark's world. It became the shark's world. Far below the silver skin of the morning ocean, the light was muted, filtered into a shifting tapestry of greens and shadow. The great white shark glided just above the continental shelf, a silent shape carved from muscle, cartilage, and hunger. The sea here was full of messages, and the shark could read them without eyes. The faint tank of anchovy oil from a distant bait ball, the mineral breath of cold upwelling, the trace of barnacle dust from the hull of a passing ship. But beneath it all was something older, heavier, impossible to ignore. Blood. The first molecules brushed the sensitive folds inside its snout, like the faintest touch. The shark adjusted its course without conscious thought. Each sweep of its tail drew more water into the twin portals of its nostrils, each pulse bringing the chemical story into sharper focus. A large mammal, warm-blooded, injured, alive. It rose slightly, breaking through a thin thermocline into cooler water, where the trail thickened like ink in a jar. This was no random smear. It was a continuous ribbon, stretching out ahead and down current. The shark followed, its body moving in that hypnotic, effortless rhythm. Drive, glide, glide. Its eyes were pale and expressionless, but in the ancient part of its brain that knew no words, there was recognition. This was the kind of scent worth patience. Above, a shaft of light fractured through the swell. The outline of a massive cargo ship passed far ahead, a steel island moving on its own invisible road. The shark ignored it. Whatever damage that giant had caused was already written in the water. The ribbon of blood told more than just injury. It carried context. Embedded in the scent was the sweet, milky note of a calf, young skin, untested muscles, fast heartbeat. That scent appeared and vanished intermittently, hidden behind the mother's bulk, but it was there. A wounded adult was one thing. A calf meant vulnerability multiplied. The great white angled lower, using the gentle slope of the shelf to mask its profile. It knew how to remain a shadow among shadows, using kelp beds and sand ridges to break its outline. The calf would never see it coming until the final rush. Every few beats, it slowed just enough to taste again, mapping the trail's changes. The blood was fresh, no more than minutes old and unbroken, meaning the prey was still moving steadily. There were no frantic bursts of lactic acid, no wide, scattered plumes that would signal panic. This was an injured animal pacing itself, conserving strength for the journey ahead. That would change. The shark's other senses joined the hunt. Along its flanks, the lateral line, a delicate web of pressure sensors, began to hum with faint vibrations, the steady, deliberate beats of a powerful fluke. Somewhere far ahead, the injured whale pushed through the water, each stroke echoing through the sea's fabric. Beside her, a smaller, quicker rhythm, the calf, flitted in and out of sync. The predator did not rush. Distance was an ally. In the open ocean, many hunts were lost to haste. A mother humpback could kill a careless shark with a single strike of her tail. The scars on the great white's flank were reminders of that truth. Patience would bring her to the point of exhaustion, and then she would make a mistake. The trail led into a forest of giant kelp. Long fronds swayed like green banners in the current, their surfaces glistening with tiny bubbles. The shark slid between them, its dorsal fin brushing stalks thick as a man's arm. Here, the scent clung to the blades. The whale had passed through recently, forcing a wide lane through the tangled canopy. On one frond, a pale ribbon of torn skin drifted lazily, blubber and epidermis sheared away by steel. The shark drank the scent in deeply, then pressed on. Somewhere above the kelp canopy, a flicker of white moved, perhaps the edge of a pectoral fin catching the sun. Too far for a strike. Not yet. A sudden vibration tickled the shark's senses. Another hunter was approaching from behind, younger, smaller, but fast. The great white tilted slightly, showing its bulk in a silent warning. The youngster veered wide. There would be time enough to decide who fed first. The ribbon of blood grew stronger, thicker, until it was almost a wall. The hunter's mouth parted slightly, rows of serrated teeth hidden behind pale gums. Not to bite, not yet, but to prepare. The moment would come. The scent shifted, suddenly sharper. Pain chemicals. The mother had flinched or changed pace. The calf's smaller wake flickered alongside, still close, still sheltered. The predator felt the water narrowing ahead, the terrain shaping into a corridor between two shallow ridges, a perfect place to trap them. It climbed toward the light, staying just beneath the thermocline, invisible to eyes above. The final approach was a matter of angles and patience. The whale did not yet know she was being shadowed, but she would feel something soon. A pressure in the water, a disturbance too large to be ignored. The shark slowed, letting the current carry more scent across its face. The calf's presence was stronger now, his tiny heart broadcasting in a faint electric hum, picked up by the ampulla of Lorenzini along the shark's snout. The mother's heartbeat was deeper, slower, but under strain. Ahead, beyond the last veil of kelp, the shapes of two whales moved, one massive, one small, swimming closer together now, the gap between them no wider than a fin. The predator turned slightly, lining itself with the mother's blind spot, preparing for the first test strike. It did not lunge, not yet. The hunt was a long game, and the ocean was patient. But the distance was closing, and in the green silence between predator and prey, the sea itself seemed to hold its breath. The calf had never known a day that felt like this. For all his short life, the ocean had been a playground, wide, forgiving, full of soft currents to ride and shimmering fish to chase. Every corner of it had seemed alive with wonders. If the water darkened under a passing cloud or a school of fish scattered at his approach, it was just another game. And always, his mother was there, a wall of warmth at his side, her shadow like a sheltering sky, her deep voice a steady hum in the background. But today the water was different. It wasn't colder, not exactly, though a faint chill seemed to cling to his skin. It wasn't darker, though the light above seemed somehow farther away. No, it was the space itself that had changed. The ocean didn't feel endless anymore. It felt close, as if invisible walls pressed in from every side, narrowing the world until it was only wide enough for the two of them. And it was his mother who made it so. She kept him closer than she ever had before, curving her massive body so he swam in the hollow of her flank on the side opposite her wound. Every time he tried to slip forward or drift away, she adjusted her angle, tightening the arc to keep him tucked in, loosening it only when he fell behind, drawing him forward again until they were nearly nose to nose. It was a silent message. Here is safe. There is not. He followed without question, but he didn't understand why. The blood, that strange, sharp scent that trailed behind her since the collision, didn't mean danger to him yet. It was just something new, something that marked her from the other whales they'd met along their migration. The seafloor beneath them rolled in gentle rises and dips, like slow breaths in sand. Long blades of kelp swayed above the ridges, their movements hypnotic in the filtered light. In the past, he would have darted toward them, weaving through the swaying stalks just to feel them brush his skin. But every time he veered toward a distraction now, her voice came, low, brief, a single note that vibrated through the water and left no room for disobedience. It was not the playful call she'd used before. This one was sharper, shorter. It meant return. They crossed a wide patch of open sand where the sunlight fell in trembling columns. He wanted to swim higher into the light, to roll and chase his shadow. She pressed him downward instead, until their bellies nearly brushed the darker seam where sand met water. Here, in the dimmer light, their shapes melted into the seafloor's pattern. he realized she was teaching him something. Lesson 1. Shadowing. She angled him into positions where the shadows from rocks, ridges, or kelp fell across them. When they crossed open water, she sped up just enough so their own shadows would slide ahead and disappear into cover before their bodies followed. It was deliberate, precise, and the more he watched, the more he understood. Shadows could protect. Shadows could hide. Lesson 2. Switchbacks. The shelf broke into low terraces, each dropping away to the next. Instead of swimming straight over them, she traced a weaving path, hugging the edge of each drop, doubling back, then slipping into the calmer water on the leeward side. He tried to cut across once, thinking it would be faster, but the current caught him broadside and shoved him into bright water where his shape stood out like a flag. She didn't scold. She simply swept past him and reclaimed the lead. He understood the correction without words. Lesson 3. Stillness. They drifted into a pocket of water where two currents met and cancelled each other, leaving an eerie, glassy calm. He expected her to surge forward, but instead, she went slack. No fluke, no fin. She hung in place like a stone on the seabed. He fidgeted, the urge to move almost unbearable. She didn't. Finally, he copied her, letting his body go weightless. And in that stillness, he felt something strange. The water slipping past without noticing him at all. It was as if the ocean had forgotten they existed. It thrilled him. It scared him more. Somewhere behind them, hidden by distance and shadow, a shape followed. The predator did not hurry. It didn't need to. The mother's detours, pauses, and corrections cost her energy. The calf's occasional bursts of speed and missteps slowed them further. And the blood, thinner now but still present, carried a constant message through the water. Wounded, alive, worth following. The mother's next signal came without sound. A sudden change in her muscle tension, a subtle tilt of her pectoral fin. He matched her depth instinctively. She led him toward a cluster of massive rocks, their surfaces shaggy with weed and barnacles. At the largest, she slowed and pulled him into its shadow. They waited. The calf didn't he know why until it appeared, a pale underbelly gliding past the far side of the rock, long and smooth, backed by a darker shape above. It didn't move like fish or dolphin. Its tail swept side to side in slow, powerful strokes that made the water shiver. The calf's pulse quickened. His first instinct was to look directly at it, but something in his mother's stillness told him not to. Instead, he looked at the water beside it, watching how it curled and swirled. That, he realized, told him where the head and the jaws would be. The shape passed. She didn't chase. She didn't flee. She simply eased them out from the rock and resumed their winding path, as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. The calf pressed closer than before, his flank brushing her pectoral fin with every stroke. He didn't look back, but he felt the shadow still there, in the green distance behind them. He didn't yet know its name, shark, but instinct had begun to write the first lines of the word in his bones, and he understood, for the first time, that not all lessons were games. Some lessons were about staying alive. The water ahead turned darker, not because of the depth, but because of what waited in it. The mother did not need to see the predator to know it was near. The sea carried its arrival in subtle ways. The faint change in current direction, the low-pressure wave that pulsed against her skin, the disturbance that did not match the rhythm of the swell. It was like hearing a distant drumbeat that didn't belong to any song she knew. Her body tightened. She did not look back. Looking back wasted time and betrayed awareness. Instead, she altered her course, angling away from the shelf's kelp-lined ridges into deeper water. The move was deliberate. Away from cover, yes, but also away from places where the shark could use terrain to ambush from close range. In the open, she could see an attack coming, and more importantly, she could meet it head-on. The calf followed, close enough, now that his skin brushed her flank with each beat of his tail. He didn't question the change. He could feel the tension radiating through her massive frame, hear the difference in her breathing, shorter at the surface, deeper and longer in the descent. Her heartbeat, normally a slow, steady drum, now carried a sharper rhythm. They dropped into the deep, leaving the light behind in wide, trembling columns. Far behind, and slightly below, the shark rose. For hours it had stalked them with patience, content to let fatigue do its work. But now the signs were all there. The mother's evasive patterns had straightened. The calf's smaller bursts of speed were shorter. The scent of blood in the water had grown stronger again. The wound was open, leaking fresh signals into the current. It slid upward in a slow, even climb, keeping its dark back toward the depths and its pale belly toward the light. This made it a phantom. From below, it blended with shadow. From above, it matched the sunlight. Its black eyes, unblinking and cold, fixed on the smaller silhouette just off the mother's side. The calf, the weak link. The calf saw it first, not in detail, but as a change in the water, a blur at the edge of his vision, a distortion in the green, something that moved with purpose but without hurry. He flinched and pressed closer to his mother. She did not turn. She simply slowed for a fraction of a second, drawing him tighter to her uninjured side, then began a wide, gradual turn, not away from the shadow, but toward it. The shark recognized the shift immediately. Prey usually turned away. This one was closing the distance. It dropped slightly, altering its angle, preparing to meet the mother's path from below and ahead. Timing would be everything. The mother's roll began as a subtle tilt, then deepened until she was on her side, one massive white pectoral fin arcing toward the light above. The calf stayed in her shadow, feeling the sudden change in orientation pull him sideways. His eyes darted through the dim water, and then he saw it. The shape was enormous, longer than her pectoral fin, its head wide and conical, its mouth hidden but obvious in the slope of its snout. The eyes were fixed, unblinking, set deep in a mask of pale gray. The tail moved side to side in slow, deliberate sweeps, each one a measure of raw power. She did not flee. She struck. Her tail whipped downward in an explosive burst, the force compressing the water into a sudden shock wave. The pressure hit the shark square in the snout, not enough to injure but enough to shove it offline. In the shark's world, the first strike was everything. A missed angle meant starting over. It veered away, circling into the green gloom to reset. The calf's heart raced. He had never seen his mother move like that, with such violence and precision. She steadied him with a brief brush of her jaw, then surged forward, putting distance between them and the point of contact. But she knew it was temporary. The predator would return. Above, the surface shimmered with wavering light, but it seemed impossibly far away now. Below, the deep was a darker green, heavy with unseen weight. In between, the mother and calf moved as one, their bodies almost touching, each breath calculated, each turn measured. They were no longer just traveling. They were in the hunt, a second stage, the part where predator and prey had seen each other and understood what was coming. There would be no more shadows to hide in, only choices, and each one would have to be perfect. The hunt had shed its patience. For hours the shadow had stalked them, testing angles, matching depth, weaving through terrain when the mother tried to lose it in the kelp or along the ridges of the shelf. The blood trail had always been there, a faint thread in the water, but now, after the last encounter, the scent was richer again, fresh and sharp. The predator was closing. The mother knew it. The calf felt it. They moved together as one shape, almost touching. Their bodies aligned so tightly that the calf's fluke brushed her belly every few strokes. The world outside that corridor was no longer ocean. It was danger. Every movement beyond her curve could be the one that cost him his life. They surfaced into a broken sky. A long swell rolled under them, the wind carrying the tang of rain from somewhere far to the south. The mother broke first, her spout a deep guttural hiss that vanished into the chop. The calf surfaced beside her, his exhale quick and high. She let him take 2 breaths before her muscles tensed again. A silent order. They slid beneath the surface, down into the green twilight. The shark was already there. It had been rising from below, pale belly blending into the fractured light above. Its black eyes tracked the calf, the smaller, quicker heartbeat it had been mapping for miles. The mother's injured flank faced outward, leaving the calf tucked safely to her good side. But the predator was patient enough to wait for an opening, and now it had one. The first sign the calf felt was the pressure. The water beside him thickened, as if a current had suddenly reversed. It pressed against his skin, then seemed to fold around him. He flinched, instinctively leaning closer to his mother. Her body curved slightly, her pectoral fin dropping lower, not blocking him from the shark's line, but guiding him into a narrower pocket of safety. She didn't turn to look. She didn't need to. She could feel the predator's acceleration through the skin of the sea. The attack began in silence. From the darkness below, the shark surged upward, its head swinging slightly side to side to lock in on its target. The The pale underbelly swelled larger, the conical snout pointing straight for the calf's midsection. Its jaws stayed closed for now, conserving drag, but the moment of impact was measured in heartbeats. The calf's eyes widened. He didn't have words for what he was seeing, but his instincts screamed in a language older than his bloodline. The mother moved first. Her tail lashed downward in an explosive kick, the power starting in the deep muscle at the base of her spine and whipping through the fluke like a catapult arm. The resulting wall of water hit the shark full in the snout, just enough to throw off its perfect angle. It was still coming, but now its jaws would close where she had been, not where she was. The shark opened its mouth wide. Rows of serrated teeth, triangular and pale, flashed in the green light. They raked along the mother's flank as it passed, slicing through the blubber and peeling a ribbon of skin. Pain bloomed white-hot, but the angle saved her from worse. The teeth had not reached muscle. Her answer was immediate. She rolled sharply toward the shark's retreating head, swinging her barnacle-encrusted pectoral fin like a battering ram. The impact struck the predator along the gill slits, jarring its balance. Before it could recover, her fluke swept across its tail in a brutal backhand, sending the shark sliding sideways into the gloom. The water went still for a heartbeat. The calf trembled against her side, his breaths quick and shallow. She brushed his head with her jaw, pressing him even closer, then angled them upward. They had to breathe. At the surface, the air was choppy, whipped by wind. She inhaled, deep and fast. The calf broke beside her, struggling to draw a full breath. She waited until he'd caught enough air, then dove again, deeper this time. Below, the shark wheeled back into position. It wasn't wounded badly, just irritated. The failed strike had cost energy, but not appetite. It dropped lower into the green, then curved into a wider arc, planning a second attempt from behind and below. The calf's position beside his mother would force her to choose, turn to meet the attack, and risk exposing him, or keep her flanked to him, and take the bite herself. The shark was betting on hesitation. The mother didn't hesitate. As the predator began its climb, she turned sharply toward a shallow ridge of the seafloor. Silt and fine shell fragments rose in clouds as her fluke brushed the bottom. The water between them and the shark turned murky. She didn't stop there. She rolled again, placing the calf inside the shelter of her curve, and went still, not fleeing, not advancing, waiting. The shark punched into the cloud. Its eyes saw only drifting haze. Its lateral line felt only the dying echoes of her last movement. It hesitated, and in that pause, she struck. Her fluke slammed the water just off its snout, not in a direct hit but in a concussive shockwave that rattled its senses. The predator flinched sideways, losing its upward momentum. In that instant, she surged forward, clearing the cloud and dragging the calf with her into open water. They didn't stop until the bottom fell away beneath them, the water turning a deeper green. Above, the swell moved in long, heavy lines. Behind, the shark was already circling back, but it had lost the element of surprise. The first clash was over. Neither had won, neither had lost, but the rules of the hunt had changed. Now, both knew the other could fight, and in the wide, cold silence of the deep, the game shifted from patience to endurance, a game where the one who made the first mistake would not survive. The sea does not often give predators allies, but blood will. The first hunter had learned the mother's strengths, the way she rolled to block, the explosive power of her fluke, the precision of her strikes. It had also learned her limits, the wound that still leaked into the current, the calf's shorter range, the fact that she could only defend from one side at a time. That knowledge was valuable, and now it would be shared. Far behind, skimming the edge of scent and sound, another shape moved into the trail. It was smaller, faster, a young great white, lean with the speed of inexperience. Its senses were sharpened by hunger, its movements more restless, impatient for the chase to end. It had been hunting rays over the sandflats when the first molecules of blood reached it, curling into its awareness like smoke through a crack. One taste was enough. It banked toward the source, each sweep of its tail closing the gap until the scent grew thick, heavy, undeniable. Somewhere ahead, a kill was already in motion. The young shark intended to take part. The older shark felt it arrive before it saw it. A faint vibration in the water, a second cadence of tailbeats overlapping its own. Predators do not greet each other in the open sea. They measure. The first hunter kept its distance, neither challenging nor yielding. The sea would decide which of them fed. The young one did not slow. It cut in closer to the trail, weaving through the ribbons of diluted blood, reading the chemical signature. Large whale, wounded, calf present. A rare opportunity. It accelerated. The mother knew something had changed. It was subtle at first. The predator's approach no longer came from one direction, but two. The water's pressure shifted in uneven pulses, out of sync. She slowed for half a second, testing the feel of it. Yes, two. Her body tensed. One predator was dangerous. Two meant the ocean itself had turned against her. She pressed the calf so close his fluke brushed the deep notch at the base of hers. He felt her breathing grow heavier, not from panic, but from calculation. The first shark swung wide, holding its established line. The second came in high and fast, testing the edges of her defense. The calf saw it first, a blur of pale belly in the corner of his vision, darting in from above and ahead. He flinched, but his mother's body curved to meet it, blocking the line. The young shark veered off at the last second, not committing to the strike, only gauging her reaction. The older shark moved in closer during the feint, sliding along her wounded flank, forcing her to split her attention. This was the danger of two hunters. They could work her from both sides, one distracting, one striking. Even without speaking, predators can learn each other's rhythm. The mother refused to give them that rhythm. She shifted course abruptly, turning toward a rising bank of sand that led into shallow water. The surge was stronger here. The bottom stirred into clouds with every wave. It wasn't a place she could stay long. Too little depth for escape dives, but it might break their coordination. The calf followed, feeling the drag of the current against his face. His mother's fluke stirred up a trail of grit that stuck to his skin like fine powder. The water tasted different here. Sandy, metallic, restless. The young shark darted in again, this time closer. Its jaws opened just enough to flash teeth before snapping shut on empty water as the mother spun, her pectoral fin slicing across its snout. It pulled back, circling, uninjured but startled by the sudden speed of her turn. The older shark stayed patient, holding a steady arc around her, waiting for the calf to stray or the mother to slow. The mother's mind worked like the sea, not in straight lines, but in currents. Two sharks meant she couldn't rely on the same tactic twice. If she turned to block one, the other would press the opening. If she kept the calf too close to her injured side, the scent would be a lure. Too far, and he'd be exposed. She needed to break their timing, to force them into each other's path. She dropped suddenly, diving beneath the young shark's next pass. The calf clung to her shadow, his small body whipping through the sudden descent. Sand and grit spiraled above them, briefly cutting the young shark off from its elder. The older shark adjusted, angling to intercept from below, but the mother rose again, hard and fast, straight into the space where the two hunters' arcs overlapped. For a brief moment, predator met predator. The young one veered sharply to avoid the older's snout, both breaking off their approach. The mother took that moment and ran, not in panic, but in a long, steady glide, toward deeper water, putting as much distance between herself and the bank as possible. The calf stayed pressed to her side. His eyes were wide, but there was something different in them now. Not just fear, but understanding. He had seen the way she moved to make her enemies stumble into each other's path. He had felt the change in the water when they crossed lines. The lesson was unspoken, but it was there. Survival is not just strength, it is control. Behind them, the two sharks regrouped. The older one resumed its patient tracking, letting the younger test the whale's reactions. The younger, eager for blood, began circling tighter, ready to dart in at the first sign of weakness. The mother knew they would not give up, and as the open blue swallowed them again, she understood that the fight had only just begun. The first signs came from above. Far ahead, the horizon blurred. No longer a clean line between water and sky, but a smeared, shifting band of grey. The wind, which had been steady from the south, began to veer and stiffen, running in uneven gusts that made the swells grow longer, heavier. The mother lifted her head in the shallows of a surfacing breath, tasting the air. It was sharp with the tang of rain, thick with the kind of pressure that presses against the lungs, even above the surface. A change was coming, fast. For most whales, a storm was an inconvenience. For her today, it was a weapon. The sharks felt it too. The older one had swum through enough storms to know their patterns. The way light vanished early, the way currents tangled into unpredictable knots. In bad weather, Even a predator could become prey if it misjudged a strike and ended up too close to rocks or in a rip current. But the scent trail in front of it was too fresh, too rich, to abandon. The younger one didn't think about the danger at all. To it, storms were just water from a different angle. Hunger was the only weather it understood. The mother dove again, pulling the calf with her. She didn't explain, didn't slow, only adjusted her course slightly toward the oncoming darkness. The calf felt the change in the water. The first fat drops of rain striking the surface above sent small shocks down through the column. Each one was a tiny drumbeat, and together they blurred the normal sounds of the sea. It was harder to hear, harder to feel through the water. That could work for them. The sharks tightened their circles. The younger made another dart toward her flank, snapping at the water just behind the calf's tail. She rolled, swinging her pectoral fin between them like a gate, forcing the youngster to twist away. The older stayed wide, careful, conserving energy. It knew the hunt was shifting into its decisive phase, the moment when one side's endurance would fail. The storm arrived as a moving wall. One moment the surface above was a restless silver. The next it was hammered into steel by a curtain of rain. The sound was immediate and overwhelming, a constant roar that sank deep into the water, turning the whole upper layer into noise. The wind tore at the tops of waves, flinging spray sideways. Swell lines twisted into cross seas, their patterns breaking apart. For the predators, it was disorienting. For the mother, it was cover. She accelerated, her fluke driving with a steady, powerful rhythm. The calf struggled to keep up at first, then found her slipstream and let it carry him. Visibility dropped fast. Even a body length away was half lost in haze and shadow. The younger shark tried to match her speed, but found itself fighting the push and pull of shifting currents. Twice, it was knocked slightly off course. Once, almost into the older's path. A flash of pale belly and a quick tail swipe were all that kept them from colliding. The older shark slowed deliberately, dropping lower to find a more stable layer of water. It wouldn't lose the trail entirely, not yet, but it knew chasing at full speed through this chaos risked wasted energy. The mother angled toward a jagged stretch of the seabed, an underwater ridge whose spines rose high enough to slice the surface on low tide. She knew it from migrations past, knew its cracks and narrow passes. In calm seas, it was a playground for reef fish and a hunting ground for ambush predators. In a storm, it was a labyrinth. She led the calf into the first channel. The walls of rock rose on either side, funneling the surge through in bursts of white water and sand. The calf pressed so close to her flank he could feel the rough scrape of the rock against her skin as she brushed the wall to stay hidden. Behind, the younger shark charged into the channel too fast. Its vision blurred by a sudden side current, slammed it against the wall, scraping skin from its flank. It jerked away in surprise, momentarily breaking pursuit. The older one didn't follow directly. Instead, it circled to the outside, looking for a gap where the channel emptied back into open water. It wasn't going to get trapped in a place where the mother's size and strength would turn every corner into an ambush. The mother kept moving through the ridge, doubling back once to confuse the trail, then slipping into a deeper crevice where the surge couldn't reach. Here, the water was almost still, a pocket of calm hidden in the heart of the storm's chaos. She hovered there, her body wrapped protectively around the calf. His sides heaved with effort, but he was alive, unbitten. She could feel his heart hammering against her flank. Above, the roar of the storm muted the outside world. The predators would still be near, but for the moment, the noise, the silt, and the jagged terrain were all on her side. She waited. The older shark passed the mouth of the crevice once, slow, cautious. The younger was nowhere in sight, either still recovering from its collision or trying another approach. She knew they wouldn't give up, but storms change everything. Currents shift, scents disperse faster, and even the best hunter can be forced to choose between safety and the chase. If she could make them choose wrong, she and the calf might live to see calm water again. Outside, the ridge shuddered under the force of another surge. The storm had deepened. The mother knew this window would not last. Her muscles coiled. Her path was set. She would use the next surge to run. And if the hunters followed her into the storm's heart, the ocean itself might take them. The ridge breathed with the pulse of the storm. Each surge drove water through its jagged ribs, then released it in a hiss of grit and broken shell. In a pocket of relative calm tucked within those stone walls, The mother whale held her calf so close his fluke brushed the deep notch above hers. Every muscle in her body was tuned to the rhythm of the sea's inhalations. She counted 1 surge, 2. On the 3rd, they would ride the pressure like a sling and burst out of hiding before the hunters could adjust. Above them, the surface roared under the weight of rain. Fat drops hammered the water into steel, and the noise bled down through the column, swallowing the smaller sounds of pursuit. For now, the storm cloaked them. For now. She pushed off as the ridge exhaled, the surge catching them and flinging them forward. With a subtle tilt of her pectoral, she held the calf in the slipstream, letting the current do the work. Behind them, silt boiled into a brown-green fog that hid their shapes. At the channel's mouth, the older shark slowed, wary of the murk. The younger one came in too hot, scraping its fin against stone before darting back with a flick of its tail. The ridge opened into a rough courtyard of submerged buttresses. Surge piled white water over the highest spines, and between them a rip current carved its way toward the open sea, a narrow, powerful river within the ocean. Ridden well, it could fling them miles from danger. Ridden wrong, it would launch them straight into flat, clean water, a perfect killing field. The mother adjusted her course toward the seam. That was when the shadow appeared, a grey shape cut across the murk, fast and sleek, a bottle-nosed dolphin. It rolled to flash its pale belly, then curved back toward them with a sharp whistle that sliced through the storm's din. The calf's heart leaped. Weeks ago, he had played with dolphins in calmer waters, chasing their spirals and leaping in their wakes. He tilted toward it before the mother's fin pressed firmly against his ribs. The dolphin circled once, clicking rapidly. The sound painted the world in echoes. Rock walls, ledges, overhangs, each one mapped in perfect detail. Then it shot toward a narrower chute in the ridge, rolled its body in invitation, and whistled again, sharp and insistent. The mother knew dolphins. She had seen them mob sharks, guide injured whales, even fend off orcas. She had also seen them abandon strangers without hesitation. The sea's mercy was fickle. Still, the path the dolphin offered matched one she already knew, a curved chute that broke the hunter's angles and emptied into the rip's strongest vein. She hesitated only long enough to taste the water. The pull was strong, the flow clean. It could work. They followed. The chute narrowed. Kelp fronds torn loose by the storm brushed their backs. The dolphin's clicks rattling the water with a map she could almost feel under her skin. The calf kept tight to her flank, his eyes wide. Then, under the staccato mapping, she felt something else. A second set of clicks, pitched differently, not cast forward to guide, but backward, to mark. The dolphin wasn't just showing them the way, it was broadcasting their position. Her skin prickled. They burst into a T-shaped split in the rock. To the right, a short run straight into the rip's main artery. Fast, direct, and obvious. To the left, a darker, slower slot, where the surge thinned, and the exit was uncertain. The dolphin didn't hesitate. It darted right, whistling sharply. The mother tasted the water. The right-hand path was rich with her own scent, braided together by the rip into a single thick ribbon. That current would carry it far and wide, a beacon for anything hunting them. In that moment, she understood. The dolphin's clicks weren't for her, they were for the sharks. Somewhere nearby was a nursery, a hidden cove where dolphin calves sheltered under the watch of their mothers. By luring the hunters to her trail in the rip, the dolphin was leading danger away from its own young. The whales weren't being rescued, they were the decoy. The dolphin swooped back, snapping its jaws in the water. It brushed close to the calf's cheek, trying to nudge him toward the brighter current. The calf, startled, began to drift in that direction. The mother blocked him, her body a wall of solid muscle, and pressed him tight beneath her jaw. She lifted her head and met the dolphin's dark, intelligent eye. She saw no hatred there, only the hard arithmetic of survival. Far behind, the younger shark had already found the rip scent line and surged toward it. The older one trimmed its path to meet at the outer bar, ready for the strike. 2 bad choices, one too visible, one too slow. She chose the one that kept the choice hers, left. The slot closed in, forcing her to turn on her side, her barnacled pectoral scraping the rock. The calf followed clumsily, the tip of his fluke brushing her wound. Pain flared bright and hot, but she swallowed it. Behind them, the dolphin circled at the fork, gave a frustrated squeal, then vanished into the storm, heading back toward the safety of its cove. Its last act was a fan of loud clicks cast into the water, one final broadcast of their location. The slot opened into a shallow basin. The storm's roar softened here, the water swirling in eddies. For a moment, there was only the sound of their own breathing. Then the surface above trembled, the pressure wave of something passing. One shadow, then another. The sharks had taken the right-hand path, chasing the safe route the dolphin had offered. The mother counted 2 heartbeats, then 3. She rose into a layer of froth churned by the storm, a ceiling of micro-bubbles that shredded, sent and blurred the pressure lines of their bodies. Staying low in that milky water, she slid toward an exit that cut across the rip diagonally into the deep. They broke the surface inside the collapsing face of a wave. The wind tore her spout sideways. The calf coughed spume and gasped for air before diving again. For 50 body lengths, the ocean cooperated. White water masked the scent of blood. Turbulence smudged the trail, and the jagged terrain below scattered the predator's senses. Then the sea changed. They slipped from the froth into a glassy eddy, calm, clear, and deadly. The blood's signature gathered in the stillness, curling upward like a ribbon. From the far rim of the eddy, a pale shadow rose, the older shark, looping back on a wider arc. It lifted toward them in a perfect line for the strike. The mother didn't run. She stopped. The shark surged in, expecting a moving target. Instead, it met a wall. At the last instant, she rose half her length and drove her skull into its snout. Bone rang against cartilage. As it recoiled, she swept her barnacled pectoral across its gill line, forcing the head aside. Using the recoil of her own pain, she kicked hard, propelling herself and the calf out of the eddy and back into broken water. Far to the side, the younger shark reappeared, charging downswell. Its path crossed the older's wake at an awkward angle, forcing the larger hunter to slow. For a moment, predator collided with predator's calculations, and the mother seized the gap. Rain fell harder, the ridge faded behind them. Ahead, the shelf smoothed into long dunes of sand. Bad cover, but open enough to breathe without fear of ambush from below. The calf stayed pressed against her, no longer glancing back for the dolphin. Neither did she. In gentler seas, shepherds guide you home. Here, they sometimes point the wolves elsewhere and call it love. The betrayal had not cut her flesh, but it had carved away the notion that help, once given, could be trusted to stay. From somewhere beyond the dunes, the water began to vibrate with a different kind of pressure. Low, resonant, chest-borne. Not hers, not the calf's. A voice old as the ocean itself, rolling through the storm. Friend or foe, she could not yet know. But it was something new. And right now, new might be enough. The sound came first as a vibration, faint, buried beneath the constant roar of the storm. But it carried a weight that the mother felt deep in her bones. It rolled through the water like a slow drumbeat, too low for the calf to name, too steady to be a trick of wind or wave. Then came another, and another. Each pulse was long, deliberate, resonant, the kind of sound no predator made. This was not the quick, narrow click of a hunter's senses. It was something else entirely. The mother knew it. It was song. Somewhere ahead, beyond the line of sand dunes and the deep green beyond, other whales were singing. Their voices moved through the water like pillars of sound, each one spaced far enough apart that the ocean seemed to breathe between them. To the calf, it was unlike anything he had ever heard. A river of noise that didn't push him away or pull him in, but held him in place. It wrapped around his small body the way his mother's fin did, steady and warm. He turned his head toward her, eyes wide with questions. She didn't answer with a call of her own. Not yet. Song is more than greeting. It is declaration, and in the hunted sea, declaration can become invitation. The sharks heard it too. The older one slowed, adjusting its path. It didn't fear the sound, but it read the water differently now. Whales and chorus could mean strength in numbers. A lone wounded whale with a calf was one kind of hunt. A pod was another, riskier, more chaotic, sometimes deadly for the hunter. The younger shark didn't think about risk. It angled toward the sound, drawn by curiosity as much as hunger. The mother weighed the distance. The singers were not close, not yet. She would have to cross open ground to reach them, long dunes of sand where her size would make her stand out like a shadow against pale light. The dunes offered no kelp, no rock walls, no ridges to hide behind, only the deep blue above and the deep green below. But between her and the singers lay something far more dangerous, the two sharks, still separate but arcing in patterns that would close on her the moment she made a move. She turned to the calf, brushing him gently with her pectoral. "Stay in the corridor." He pressed against her, understanding that closer was now survival's only rule. They began to move, slow at first, letting the swell push them forward, then faster as she found a current that ran obliquely across the dunes. It wasn't strong enough to hide them completely, but it carried the smell of sand and churned shell, enough to blur the finer edges of the blood trail. The older shark adjusted to intercept, its tail sweeping in slow, deliberate arcs. It didn't rush. It knew how to drive prey into the open. The younger darted in a wider loop, looking for a chance to cut them off. The mother changed depth, dropping lower until the dunes rose over her like rolling hills. From here, she could use their curves to hide her body for seconds at a time. It wasn't much, but seconds were currency. The calf copied her movements, hugging the sand's contour, his fluke almost grazing the bottom. Each time they passed over a crest, light from above skated over their backs in silver ribbons, then vanished as they dropped into the next trough. The song grew louder. It was no longer a distant hum, but a layered harmony. Multiple whales weaving their voices into a single shape. One line was deep and unbroken, like the foundation of the sea. Another climbed and dipped, each note bending into the next, like the curve of a wave. A third danced between them, sharper, brighter, carrying flourishes that made the calf shiver with delight. To the mother, it was more than beauty. It was structure. The way the notes overlapped meant the singers were moving, not stationary, but traveling in a loose line, likely feeding as they went. That meant unpredictability, noise, and the kind of mass presence that could mask her entirely if she reached them. The younger shark struck first. It appeared suddenly over a dune ahead, its body slicing the water in a steep downward arc. The calf froze for half a heartbeat, before his mother's body swept in front of him. She angled sharply upward, letting the sharks lunge past beneath her belly, then twisted her tail in a brutal kick that sent a wall of turbulence into the predator's path. The shark's momentum broke. It slid sideways, its jaws snapping on empty water. The older shark closed in from behind, taking advantage of the distraction. The mother didn't hesitate. She dove toward the base of a dune, the calf tight at her side. The older shark followed, but the slope of the sand forced it to rise or risk plowing into the bottom. It chose to rise, breaking into the open water above. That gave her space. She pushed hard, using the lull to climb the next dune. As they crested it, the song ahead swelled, the notes vibrating through her jaw. They were close enough now that she could feel the individual pulses of breath in the singer's calls. She risked an answer. It was not a full song. Not yet. Just a single, low note shaped in her chest and released into the water. It carried a message that only another whale would hear. "I am here. I am not alone." The response came quickly. A new voice joined the chorus, closer, stronger, and moving toward her. The sharks reacted instantly. The younger slowed, its path uncertain now. The older shifted into a wide arc, no longer chasing in a straight line but circling as if to assess the new players. They didn't know how many whales were ahead, or how willing those whales might be to fight. The mother felt the balance tilt, just slightly, in her favor. From beyond the next rise, a shadow emerged, vast, smooth, and steady. A massive humpback, larger than the mother by half a body length, swam directly toward her. Barnacles crusted its jaw, and its long pectoral fins cut through the storm-lit water like white wings. The calf pressed himself into her side, both afraid and awed. The newcomer slowed as it approached, its eyes sweeping over the calf before turning to the mother. Then it sang, a deep, resonant phrase that rolled through the water like the opening line of a story. "We see you, come with us." The mother angled toward the newcomer, the calf following in her slipstream. Behind them, the older shark adjusted course but kept its distance. The younger lingered, circling wider now, unwilling to approach too close to the gathering whales. The chorus ahead swelled again, the water alive with sound. For the first time since the hunt began, the mother felt the ocean give her something she could use that wasn't born from her own strength. They swam toward it, not to safety, not yet, but toward numbers. And in the storm's chaos, under the long arcs of song, the sharks began to fade from sight. The song was no longer a distant thread. It had deepened into a wall, a living barrier of sound that moved through the storm like the slow heartbeat of the sea itself. Each note rolled over the mother's skin, steady and warm, cutting through the chaos of wind and rain. The calf pressed tighter into her side, his own heart fluttering at first, then settling into the broad, measured rhythm of the unseen choir ahead. He did not know the words, but he understood the meaning. You are not alone. From beyond the final rise of the sandy dunes, the first giant came into view. A massive male humpback, his skin mapped with pale scars, his long white pectorals sweeping the water in slow, deliberate arcs. He approached with the confidence of one who had survived many seasons, slowing as he neared, rolling slightly to display his full breadth to the calf. Behind him, two more forms emerged from the storm-s murk, a female with a fresh rake of scars along her back, and a younger male, lean and coiled with the taut strength of youth. Farther back, still hidden by the haze, the songs of at least two more whales resonated, their voices threading into the chorus, moving steadily closer. The lead male changed his song. The long flowing phrases broke into short, rhythmic pulses, the rallying call of the humpback. The mother answered with a single, low note, compressed with meaning. Here, calf with me, wounded. The response came not in sound, but in motion. The giants adjusted their paths, forming a slow, deliberate arc that curled around her and the calf. Others slid into position until their massive bodies closed into a ring, a circle of giants. Each whale angled outward, their pectorals and flukes positioned to block, tails low and heads high. The calf and mother were drawn into the very center. The water here was thick with the low, steady hum of 6 colossal heartbeats. Outside the ring, the ocean was chaos. Storm above, predators below. Inside, there was order. The sharks slowed. The older circled wide, patient and calculating. The younger, driven by heat and hunger, darted straight toward a gap between two bodies, only to veer away when a white fin as long as a boat's mast dropped down like a wall. No collision was needed. The force of displaced water shoved it off its line, stealing its momentum. The ring breathed. 6 spouts erupted at the surface, thunderous in the storm, their sound punching through the water in deep percussion. The shockwaves tangled the fine acoustic picture the sharks relied on, turning the calf's heartbeat into just one faint beat among many. The older shark slipped deeper, switching to its electroreceptive sense, the ampulla of Lorenzini, reading the faint electrical hum of muscle contractions. Somewhere in the maze of massive bodies was the quicker, sharper rhythm of the calf. The mother felt the shadow pass beneath her, measuring pain burned in her wounded fin, each beat a reminder of the cost of slowing down. She kept the calf tucked in the eddy of her own movement, where the interference from the other whales was thickest. The lead male began to count the turn. A subtle brush of his pectoral against the next whale signaled the shift. Like gears in a clock, the circle began to rotate, slow, deliberate, each giant moving forward a body length, keeping every arc of approach guarded. When the mother's position reached the edge, the younger male slid inward, brushing his chest against the rough skin near her wound, not to heal it, but to bear the pressure for a few precious moments. The younger shark struck again. It rose from below in a steep angle, jaws opening toward the narrow trough between two whales. It was a perfect approach, until the scarred female dropped her tail in a sudden, crushing sweep. She didn't need to hit the shark. The shockwave of water alone was enough to throw it off, twisting its body sideways and sending its teeth snapping on nothing but bubbles. The older shark changed tactics. It widened its arc further, then dove, approaching at a diagonal from below. The angle would force a whale to roll for a block, and that roll could leave a fleeting gap elsewhere. The mother sensed the shift in pressure, the faint push of a predator rising fast. She pressed the calf into the lowest point of the core and moved half a body length sideways, ensuring that if the strike came, it would meet her and not him. The song changed again. This time, every whale sang. Their voices wove together into a layered lattice of sound, the frequencies overlapping until every direction felt equally dense to the shark's lateral lines. To a predator, the calf's exact position became impossible to isolate. For the first time since the hunt began, hesitation crept into the older shark's movements. The circle rotated faster now. The lead male surged upward for air, taking on the responsibility for the next interception. The scarred female sank to guard the lowest point. The younger male spread his pectorals wide, covering one of the tighter points in the perimeter, ready to switch places with any whale who tired. The calf, cocooned in the moving wall, drifted into a light doze, the half-sleep of whales, one eye closing while the other stayed open. The mother never loosened her hold, keeping him in the draft behind her shoulder, where the effort to swim was smallest. Above, the wind shifted slightly, bending the rain. The momentary lull in noise let another sound cut through, the rasp of serrated teeth, moving fast through water. The younger shark had looped behind the ring, aiming for the trailing edge of the younger male's tail. A crippling bite there could shatter the formation. The younger male didn't fold. He delayed the drop of his tail by a heartbeat, then lashed it sideways in a violent kick. The water compressed into a solid wall that slammed into the shark's flank, knocking it into a tight, humiliating spiral. The older shark surfaced briefly, dorsal fins slicing black against the rain. It measured, it calculated, and then it dove again, slipping toward the shadow of the deep shelf ahead. Colder water where sound bent differently, where perhaps the whale's song would falter. The younger followed, still burning with the need to prove itself, shadowing the elder's angle for what might be a double strike. The whales countered. The lead male tightened the rhythm of his song, the beat accelerating just enough to change the timing of the rotation. The supposed gap closed before either shark could commit. The younger found nothing but the white wall of the younger male's pectoral fin. The older rolled away, its patience unbroken, but its opening gone. The drop-off loomed ahead, darker water, colder by a breath. The ring expanded slightly, each whale extending its pectorals like the spokes of a great wheel. To the sharks, the display was unmistakable. This is forbidden water. The predators made one final pass. The older tilted its head, making one last measure, then slipped over the lip of the deep. The younger lingered longer, pacing along the perimeter, black eyes unreadable. And then, slowly, it too dropped into the dark. The ring did not dissolve. They held formation until the last trace of predator faded from the water. Only then did the lead male drop his shoulder, the signal to ease. Fins lowered slightly, bodies relaxed. The mother brushed her flank against the elder, who had given her the safest pocket. No thanks were spoken. Gratitude was already written in the scars, and in the calf's unbroken breath. Her wound still ached, but the bleeding had slowed, the storm and the song masking its scent. Above, the clouds still churned. Below, the water had shifted to a deep, quiet blue. The pod began to move as one, an escort line through the deep corridor where their voices could carry far without cost. The mother held the center. The calf floated in the living cradle of their bodies and their song. Behind them, the sharks were not gone from the world, only from this chapter. Ahead, the migration stretched on, and the sea rarely left the living in peace for long. But for now, in the heart of the circle of giants, with rain slanting above, and the low, steady hum of guardians all around, the mother knew they had been given the rarest gift the ocean could offer, a pause long enough for hope to take root.